Welcome to Capitol Hill Mixtape, presented by RIAA. I'm your host, Tom Cleese. Welcome to Capitol Hill Mixtape, presented by RIAA. I'm your host, Tom Cleese, and today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Vermont's new member of Congress, Congresswoman Becca Balint. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I am very excited to be here to talk about music.
So before we even get started, I have to say the first time I ever had the chance to meet you, you were showing people that on that particular day, you had done 13,000 steps. And you seem to have some of the highest levels of energy I've ever seen on the Hill. Is that true? Or is that a normal day for you? Or is it more normally
Actually,
less?
I've been, usually between 20 and 30,000 steps is
Wow.
usually, I'm always on the move. I think better in motion. And I often have a soundtrack going in my head. So music is a huge part of my life.
Excellent. Well, we're all a big fan of the Aaron Sorkin Walk and Talk and look forward to seeing those in the halls of Congress.
Exactly.
Well, Congresswoman, so you have a very interesting career and path into public service. Could you tell us a little bit about when you first made that decision to run for public office and the music that you were listening to at the time?
Sure. It's funny because there's a couple different phases of that. I knew at 17 that I wanted to be in public office. And I have old interviews I did in a newspaper in my hometown talking about that. But at that time, I just didn't see a path to public office as an openly gay person. I really did not have any models for that. And so I also didn't have anyone in my house, in my extended family, who had done anything in politics. So although I wanted to do that and felt drawn to it, I didn't really see a path. But those years of, really feeling called to that work in high school, what I was listening to primarily was old B-52s, Rock Lobster, Planet Claire. My friends and I won a lip sync contest when I was in high school. It was at my senior year. We won the grand prize of the lip sync contest, and it was to Rock Lobster. And I was Fred Schneider. And I remember when my parents got the video of it, they were like, "Oh my God, like, what have we done?" Like, I was wearing my dad's old seersucker suit and these wingtips. And, certainly at that time, I was just trying to figure out also my identity as a gay person wasn't out to them yet. And so, I see that time of listening to B-52s, the Plasmatics, the Alarm, really trying to, figure out my way in the world. And it wasn't until much later in my 40s when my wife said to me, "You don't want to look back on your life and feel like you didn't do the thing that you were called to do." And so that's when I first ran for state Senate. And she said, "You should run because, you probably won't win. Nobody wins the first time out, and just get your name out there." And then I did win. And we both looked at each other like, "Oh, now how do we make this? How do we make this work?" But at that time, when I was running for state Senate, it was a time when I was listening to a lot of jazz, a lot of old Ella Fitzgerald, and was actually taking jazz vocal lessons. So as I said, the music's been a huge part of my life. So I play guitar, I play mandolin, I took up trumpet not too long ago because it's something I always wanted to learn, and had a jazz vocal musician in my neighborhood, in my small town in Brattleboro, and took lessons from her. And so Ella Fitzgerald a lot of times was my soundtrack at that time. And now when I think about what it is to serve in office, I have a very eclectic playlist that I listen to get pumped up for my work. So I don't know what direction you want to go in, but I'm happy to talk about that, or we can wait.
Sure. Yeah. I love it. I love that there's so much energy that we're already on to the next question. So your wife is also musical, correct?
Yes.
I think I read somewhere that she's an opera singer.
She is. She is a lawyer by day, opera singer by night. And she's also an aerial artist. So does aerial, silk, and rope. We have a really good circus school in Brattleboro, Vermont. And she combines soprano aerials with circus art. And
that's incredible.
It's amazing. We have a circus rig in our backyard. And so it's
what
not
kind of
unusual.
Equipment do you need for that?
You need a really big aerial rig that will allow you to hang rope and silks and gosh, it's probably 30 feet tall at this point, and it's portable, right? So she sometimes will take it on vacation with us.
So is
But
there
yeah,
like a flying Congresswoman act coming in the future that we could work together on?
no, but I'm
No.
hoping actually that she will bring some of her colleagues down to DC, because we often do some kind of Vermont day, as I understand it, on the Hill, but it's a lot of cheese and maple syrup, which I love. Don't get me wrong, big
Mhm.
fans of both of those things. But there is an amazing modern circus um, community in Vermont doing really cutting edge work, and I'd love people to see that side of things.
Well, please keep us in mind if we can help with that, because that sounds amazing and definitely a way to shake up the normal Vermont political world out here, which you continue to do. So, on that topic, now that you are a member of Congress, you are here. You are the first woman representing Vermont. You were the first openly LGBT person in Vermont. There's a lot of
Mhm.
weight on that, and it seems like you're more than up to it. But when it's time for a big day on the floor, time for a big day in committee, what music are you listening to pump up for that time, or maybe to wind down afterwards and just sort of become Becca again?
Yes, I love it. So if I'm pumping up, it's an eclectic mix. So some AC/DC, some Blink 182, some old classic Springsteen and Journey mixed in with Brandy Carlisle. I'm a huge Brandy Carlisle fan, but also I like to put a little old CNC Music Factory, a little Delight. I love music that pushes me to be more open as a state of being, whether it is talking to people in the elevator, whether it is talking to the security guards as I come in the building, or my colleagues. Um, that music is a way for me to feel more fully in my body. And I was thinking too that a through line for me through the campaign, which I still listen to, is Alicia Keys's Underdog. It's not so much about me being the underdog, though I think there's a case to be made that there are many reasons why I was never supposed to go to Congress, child of an immigrant, queer person, working class mom, all those things. But it's really thinking about all the constituents back home that feel like the underdog, that feel like they need somebody who is showing up for them and their families. So I know that I've embarrassed my staff more than once, I think, by singing to the security guards and the Capitol Police, singing to folks on the elevator. But it is something at this incredibly highly partisan time that still connects people. And I was reminded about that when I went to the Gershwin Awards to see Joni Mitchell get her award. I was sitting with a whole bunch of members of Congress from the Republican conference. I just happened to the way that we got seated. And I was marveling at, we all connect to this music, and there has to be a way for us to use that to talk more thoughtfully and kindly to each other about policy. So I don't have all the answers, but I'm an insatiably curious person. And I think music is often a way for us to do those things.
Well, we love to hear that. And I have to say, as somebody sitting on this side of the camera, uh, the fact that music brings both parties together has been just incredibly valuable for us to avoid being pulled into, the sort of
Yeah.
partisan back and forth. So well, we do love being something that brings people together. So the last thing that I want to ask you is,
Yeah.
your office is very active on a number of issues. We've seen
Mhm.
your campaign work, we've seen your official side, digital media accounts. Is there something that maybe you isn't being talked about in the news or isn't being tweeted about right now that you're working on or planning to work on that you want more people to know about?
Well, I have been very open about my desire to make real impact on the mental health crisis in this country. It is impacting workers and it's impacting families and schools. I think the way in which I'm wanting to talk about it is much more personal. And I was talking to my team about this yesterday. How do I show up in that space? Not just talking about policy, not just talking about best practice, but for me, as an elected official who has really struggled with anxiety and depression my whole life, how do I use the tools that I have to let constituents know that there are things, simple things that they can do on a daily basis to help them feel better. That it's not a substitute for professional help, but it goes to, why is music so important to me? Music shifts me out of dark places. You have a guitar in the back, which I'm just noticing right now. I have a guitar in my office. And for weeks, I kept saying to my staff, I got to get a guitar in this office, because when I come back to the office and I feel so down, so beat up by the tension that exists in the halls of Congress, I pull my guitar out, I play a few songs, I always feel better. I always feel better. And it goes to what you're saying. Why do I walk 20 or 30,000 steps? Why do I say to my staff, no, I'm not using the tunnels. I'm going outside to get fresh air. That all of these tiny little tools that we can use can help us feel better about ourselves. And that in turn helps us to show up in a different way in our communities, to be supportive of each other. So I'm trying to figure out a way to show up on social media around those issues. And I haven't quite hit on it yet, but I feel like we're getting closer.
Well, thank you so much for being there for your community. I always like to say that it's a little bit of a mistake to tell us that you play an instrument, because now we're going to have you come by. Everyone at RIAA, I think, plays something, and we do tend to jam sometimes. So you're going to have to
fun.
by.
There's a number of folks that play guitar in the house. And actually, I got to give a little shout out to Morgan McGarvey from Louisville. When I couldn't get my guitar down to my office, he let me borrow his. So there's a number of us who need the music to help see us through.
Well, thank you so much, Congresswoman Becca Balint. Thank you for spending some time with us today. For RIAA, I'm Tom Cleese. This has been Capitol Hill Mixtape, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.